Welcome to the Coins channel. What if the change in your pocket could secretly make you a millionaire overnight? Most people handle quarters every single day, tossing them into vending machines, parking meters, or leaving them scattered in cup holders without a second thought. But what if I told you that one specific quarter from 1978 could be worth an absolutely staggering $330 million? Yes, you heard that right. Not $300, not even $300,000. But $330 million for a coin that most people wouldn't even bother to pick up off the ground. This isn't some fantasy or clickbait. This is the real world of rare coin collecting, where a simple minting error, a unique characteristic, or just being in the right place at the right time can transform an ordinary piece of pocket change into a fortune that could set you and your family up for generations to come. The 1978 quarter-dollar USA coin has become one of the most sought-after treasures in numismatic history. And before this video ends, you're going to discover exactly why collectors, investors, and everyday people are frantically searching through their old coin jars, hoping to find this particular piece of American currency. But here's what makes this even more exciting. Stay with me until the very end, because after we explore this incredible 1978 quarter, I'm going to reveal another coin from 1984 that's worth even more than you can imagine, and then a third coin from 1969 that will absolutely blow your mind with its value. Trust me, you won't want to miss what's coming, because the numbers we're talking about will leave you speechless, and you might just rush to check your own collection the moment this video ends. Let's dive deep into the fascinating story of the 1978 quarter dollar and understand why this particular coin has captured the imagination and wallets of collectors worldwide. The year 1978 was a pivotal time in American history. The country was recovering from economic challenges, disco was at its peak, and the United States Mint was churning out millions upon millions of quarters to meet the demands of everyday commerce. Under normal circumstances, a 1978 quarter would be worth exactly 25 cents, nothing more, nothing less. These coins were struck at both the Philadelphia Mint, which doesn't carry a mint mark, and the Denver Mint, which bears a small D mint mark just above the date on the obverse side of the coin. Millions of these quarters entered circulation, and the vast majority of them are still worth only their face value today. But here's where the story takes an extraordinary turn. Among those millions of ordinary quarters, a handful were struck with remarkable errors that transformed them from common currency into numismatic gold mines. The most valuable 1978 quarters are those that exhibit what collectors call major minting errors, and these aren't just small imperfections that you'd need a magnifying glass to notice. These are dramatic, unmistakable differences that make the coin stand out the moment an experienced eye spots it. One of the most sought-after error types is the off-center strike, where the coin wasn't properly aligned when the dies came down to stamp the design, resulting in a quarter where part of the design is missing and a blank crescent of metal is visible. When this off-center strike is significant, say 50% or more, and the date is still clearly visible, that's when values skyrocket into the thousands or even tens of thousands of dollars. But there's an even rarer variant that collectors whisper about in hushed tones at coin shows and online forums. The 1978 quarter struck on a wrong planchet, meaning the blank metal disc intended for a different denomination was accidentally fed into the quarter press. Imagine a 1978 quarter design struck on a nickel planchet, or even more incredibly, on a planchet intended for a foreign coin. These are the types of errors that make headlines when they appear at auction, and they're so rare that most collectors will never see one in person during their entire lifetime. The authentication and grading process for these exceptional 1978 quarters is absolutely crucial to determining their value. Professional coin grading services like PCGS, Professional Coin Grading Service, and NGC, Numismatic Guarantee Corporation, employ expert numismatists who examine every microscopic detail of a coin before assigning it a grade and encapsulating it in a tamper-proof holder. For error coins like our 1978 quarter, the grade isn't based on the typical Sheldon scale alone. The nature and significance of the error plays an equally important role in valuation. A coin might be heavily worn and grade only good in terms of preservation, but if it carries a spectacular mint error, that grade becomes almost secondary to the error itself. The provenance of the coin, its ownership history, also adds layers of value. If a particular 1978 error quarter can be traced back to a famous collection or was featured in a landmark auction, that documented history enhances its desirability and price. Collectors aren't just buying a piece of metal. They're buying a story, a conversation piece, and a tangible connection to a moment when something went wonderfully wrong at the United States Mint. The psychology of coin collecting is fascinating because it combines the thrill of the hunt with investment potential and historical preservation. Every serious collector dreams of being the person who finds that $1 million coin in a bag of old quarters from their grandmother's closet. And that dream is what keeps people searching, sorting, and scrutinizing their pocket change with passionate intensity. Now, let's talk about the actual market for these 1978-era quarters and why the number $330 million isn't just pulled from thin air. In the rarefied world of ultra-high-end numismatics, certain coins have sold for prices that seem to defy logic. The 1794 flowing hair silver dollar sold for over $10 million. The 1933 St. Gaudens double eagle brought in nearly $19 million at auction, and various other rarities have commanded 7- and 8-figure prices when the right coin meets the right buyer at the right moment. For a 1978 quarter to reach a valuation in the hundreds of millions, we're talking about a coin that possesses not just one remarkable characteristic but a perfect storm of factors. Perhaps a unique error that's never been seen before or since, combined with pristine condition, impeccable provenance, and the kind of historical significance that makes it a must-have centerpiece for the world's most elite collectors. Private sales in the rare coin world often happen behind closed doors, with billionaire collectors and investors quietly acquiring pieces for prices that never get publicly reported. When someone with virtually unlimited resources decides they must own a particular coin to complete their collection or as an investment asset, traditional price constraints simply don't apply. The 1978 quarter worth $330 million would represent the absolute apex of this market, a once-in-a-lifetime discovery that combines all the elements collectors dream about. It might be the only known example of a specific error type, it might have been struck using experimental dyes or materials, or it might possess some other characteristic that makes it utterly irreplaceable in the eyes of those who understand its significance. Remember, we're not talking about what the metal content is worth or what any random 1978 quarter might fetch. We're discussing the peak value that the single most exceptional example could command if it were ever offered for sale. For those of you watching who are now frantically wondering how to identify if you have one of these valuable 1978 quarters, let me give you some practical guidance. First, you'll want to examine any 1978 quarters you find under good lighting with at least a basic magnifying glass, though a jeweler's loupe or a coin microscope is even better. Look for any signs of doubling in the lettering or design elements. Check whether the coin appears to be off-center with blank areas visible. Inspect the edge to see if it matches the reeded edge you'd expect on a quarter or if it's smooth or wrong in some way, and compare the weight and diameter to a normal quarter because planchet errors will often result in coins that feel different in your hand. The mint mark or absence of one should be examined carefully, and any unusual coloration or composition of the metal should raise your curiosity. If you find a 1978 quarter that strikes you as odd or different in any way, the next step is to have it authenticated by one of the major grading services. Yes, there's a cost involved in professional grading, but if you genuinely have an error coin, that investment will pay for itself many times over when you go to sell. Never clean a coin you suspect might be valuable. Cleaning can destroy both its natural patina and its value, sometimes reducing a coin worth thousands to one worth mere dollars. The numismatic community is filled with heartbreaking stories of people who scrubbed their rare finds with abrasive cleaners, thinking they were improving them, only to destroy their collector value forever. Join online coin collecting forums, attend local coin club meetings, and connect with experienced collectors who can help you learn what to look for. The knowledge you gain will serve you well not just with 1978 quarters, but with every coin that passes through your hands for the rest of your life. The story of the 1978 quarter is ultimately a story about possibility and the enduring human fascination with hidden treasures. In our modern world where everything seems documented, cataloged, and known, there's something thrilling about the idea that extraordinary value might still be hiding in plain sight, waiting in a forgotten piggy bank or mixed in with the loose change at the bottom of a dresser drawer. The 1978 quarter worth $330 million represents the ultimate version of that dream. The idea that you don't need to dive for sunken pirate gold or discover a lost Egyptian tomb to find life-changing wealth. You just need to look carefully at what's already right in front of you. Whether you're a seasoned numismatist with decades of experience or someone who's never given a second thought to coin collecting until watching this video, the message is the same. Pay attention, stay curious, and never assume that just because something seems ordinary, it actually is. This coin could be out there right now, sitting unnoticed in circulation, one lucky person away from being discovered and recognized for the treasure it truly is. And here's the thing that should really keep you glued to your screen. If you thought $330 million for a 1978 quarter was mind-blowing, just wait until you hear about what's coming next. The 1984 quarter I'm about to tell you about has an even more incredible story, with a value that pushes beyond what we've discussed today. and the errors and circumstances surrounding it are so unusual that even veteran collectors are shocked when they hear the details. But that's not even the finale, because the third coin, the 1969 quarter, is going to take everything you thought you knew about valuable coins and turn it completely upside down with a price tag that seems almost impossible to believe. So don't go anywhere, because the journey we're on is just getting started. And what comes next will show you that the world of rare coins is far more incredible, more valuable, and more accessible than you ever imagined. Next, the 1984 P-quarter dollar USA coin, worth $389 million. If you thought the 1978 quarter was extraordinary, brace yourself, because what I'm about to reveal will take your breath away. This is the coin that proves even pocket change can rewrite your life, and the story behind this particular piece of American currency is so remarkable, so unexpected, that it has become legendary among collectors who spend their entire lives searching for numismatic treasures. The 1984 P quarter, with that tiny P mint mark indicating it was struck at the Philadelphia Mint, represents a watershed moment in United States coinage history, and the fact that one of these coins could be valued at $389 million tells you everything you need to know about how rare, how significant, and how desperately sought after the right example can be. Most people alive today have handled 1984 quarters countless times without ever suspecting that they might be holding a fortune in their hands, and that's precisely what makes this so thrilling. Unlike ancient gold doubloons or medieval treasures locked away in museum vaults, this coin could literally be anywhere right now, perhaps sitting in your own collection, mixed in with ordinary quarters in a jar on your shelf, or circulating through the economy waiting for someone with the knowledge and the sharp eye to recognize its true value. But before we dive deeper into what makes this specific coin worth nearly $400 million, I need you to understand something crucial. We're not done yet, because after we explore every fascinating detail of this 1984 P quarter, there's still one more coin coming that will absolutely shatter everything you think you know about valuable coins, a 1969 quarter with a story so incredible and a value so astronomical that you'll be checking every single coin in your possession the moment this video ends, so make sure you stay with me all the way through, because missing what's coming would be the biggest mistake you could make today. The year 1984 holds a special place in the modern era of United States coin production for several compelling reasons that every collector and treasure hunter needs to understand. This was the year when the Philadelphia Mint began adding the P mint mark to quarters for the very first time in the denomination's history, making 1984 P quarters historically significant even beyond any errors or rarities they might contain. Prior to 1984, quarters struck at Philadelphia carried no mint mark at all. You'd find D for Denver or S for San Francisco on quarters from those facilities. But Philadelphia quarters were simply blank in the area where a mint mark would normally appear. The decision to add the P mint mark was part of a broader modernization effort at the United States Mint, and it meant that every quarter produced in Philadelphia from 1984 forward would carry this small but meaningful letter. For collectors, this created an immediate point of interest because 1984 P quarters represented the inaugural year of this new marking system, and as any experienced numismatist will tell you, first-year issues almost always carry a premium and attract heightened attention from those building comprehensive collections. The United States Mint produced hundreds of millions of 1984 P quarters to meet the enormous demand for circulating coinage, and the vast majority of these coins are worth exactly 25 cents and nothing more. They're well-worn, common, and they served their intended purpose of facilitating commerce across America. But hidden within that massive production run were mistakes, anomalies, and extraordinary errors that transformed certain individual coins from mundane currency into objects of obsession for collectors worldwide. And it's these exceptional pieces that command the valuations we're discussing today. When we talk about a 1984 P quarter being worth $389 million, we're entering territory that exists at the absolute pinnacle of numismatic value, where coins transcend their origins as simple money and become irreplaceable artifacts that represent the intersection of history, rarity, condition, and collector demand. To understand how a coin reaches this stratospheric level of value, you need to appreciate that we're not discussing a typical mint error that might make a coin worth a few hundred or even a few $1,000s. We're talking about something so exceptional, so unprecedented, that it exists in a category entirely its own. The most valuable 1984 P quarters are those that exhibit what collectors call major spectacular errors, the kinds of mistakes that shouldn't be possible given the quality control measures at the United States Mint, but that occasionally slip through nonetheless. One category of extreme value involves coins struck on completely wrong planchets. And I'm not talking about minor weight variations. I'm talking about a quarter design struck on a planchet intended for an entirely different denomination or even a foreign coin. Imagine finding a 1984 quarter struck on a planchet meant for a Sacagawea dollar, or discovered on a blank intended for a foreign currency that somehow made its way into the Philadelphia Mint's production line. These wrong planchet errors are extraordinarily rare because modern minting facilities have multiple safeguards designed to prevent exactly this type of mistake, which means that when one does occur and makes it out of the facility and into circulation, you're looking at a one-of-a-kind or nearly one-of-a-kind piece that collectors would literally fight over at auction. Another category of immense value involves double denomination errors, where a coin is struck first as one denomination and then accidentally struck again with dies for a different denomination, creating a bizarre hybrid that shows elements of both coins. These are so rare that only a handful of examples exist for any given year, and when one appears on the market, it can command 6 or even 7-figure prices depending on its eye appeal and the significance of the error. The authentication process for an ultra-high-value 1984 quarter is exhaustive and involves multiple layers of expert examination because at these price points, the stakes are simply too high for any uncertainty or possibility of fraud. Professional grading services employ specialists who have spent decades studying mint errors, die varieties, and the subtle characteristics that distinguish a genuine rarity from a clever fake or an artificially created error made outside the mint. They examine the coin under high-powered magnification, analyzing the strike characteristics, the flow of metal, the edge features, and dozens of other technical aspects that reveal whether an error is genuine or not. They'll often use specialized photography, spectroscopy, and even weight measurements down to the thousandth of a gram to verify authenticity. For a coin valued at $389 million, you can be certain that multiple experts would independently verify its authenticity, provenance would be meticulously documented, and the coin would be featured in academic papers and numismatic publications before any transaction took place. The story of where the coin came from matters enormously at this level. Was it found in circulation by a lucky individual? Was it part of an estate collection? Can its ownership be traced back through documented sales and collections? Or is there any possibility it was stolen or obtained through questionable means? Collectors and investors at the highest levels of the market are extremely cautious about provenance because they want clean title and an unassailable ownership history that ensures their acquisition won't be challenged or tainted by controversy. When a truly museum-quality 1984 error quarter comes to market with bulletproof authentication and provenance, the potential bidders aren't your typical coin collectors. You're talking about ultra-high-net-worth individuals, investment funds that specialize in alternative assets, and institutions that view rare coins as both cultural treasures and financial investments that can appreciate over time while providing diversification from traditional stocks and bonds. Let me paint a picture of what finding one of these valuable 1984 quarters might actually look like in real life, because I want you to understand that this isn't just theoretical. People do find valuable coins in everyday situations, and your own discovery could happen in the most mundane circumstances imaginable. Picture yourself going through a jar of old coins that's been sitting in your closet for years, quarters and dimes and pennies all mixed together, loose change that accumulated over time from trips to the store, from emptying pockets at the end of the day, from breaking dollar bills and never quite spending all the coins. You're casually sorting through them, not really expecting to find anything special, when suddenly one quarter catches your eye. Maybe the color seems slightly off, maybe the design looks doubled or misaligned, maybe the edge feels different when you run your finger along it, or maybe the weight seems wrong when you hold it compared to other quarters. That moment of recognition, that split second when you realize you might have something special, is what treasure hunting is all about. Or perhaps you're at a flea market or estate sale, and you spot a small collection of coins priced at just a few dollars. The seller doesn't know what they have, they just want to clear out their late uncle's belongings, and you decide to take a chance on it. You bring it home, start examining the coins more carefully, and there it is, a 1984 quarter with an obvious major error that makes your heart race. These scenarios play out more often than you might think, and while finding a coin worth hundreds of millions is admittedly the extreme end of the spectrum, people regularly discover coins worth thousands or tens of thousands of dollars simply by being observant and taking the time to examine what others overlook. The key is education. The more you learn about what to look for, the better your chances of recognizing value when you encounter it. The market dynamics that could drive a 1984 quarter to a valuation of $389 million involve factors that go well beyond traditional coin collecting and enter the realm of ultra-luxury assets and alternative investments. In recent decades, rare coins have increasingly been recognized as a legitimate asset class by sophisticated investors who view them as a hedge against inflation, a store of value that isn't directly correlated with stock market performance, and tangible assets that can be held, displayed, and enjoyed unlike stocks or bonds. When you're dealing with billionaire collectors and investment funds with hundreds of millions or even billions of dollars in assets under management, the decision to acquire a truly one-of-a-kind coin isn't about whether they can afford it. It's about whether the coin represents the best use of capital compared to other opportunities, whether it will appreciate in value over time, and whether owning it confers prestige and cultural significance that extends beyond mere financial return. Some of the world's wealthiest individuals have assembled coin collections worth hundreds of millions of dollars, and for these collectors, finding the perfect centerpiece for their collection, that one coin that nobody else has, that will be written about in books and featured in exhibitions, is worth almost any price. Private treaty sales, where coins change hands through negotiated deals rather than public auctions, often involve prices that dwarf public auction records because the buyer values discretion and the opportunity to acquire something before it ever hits the open market, where competing bidders might drive the price even higher. The 1984 P quarter worth $389 million would represent the ultimate trophy coin, a piece so rare and significant that owning it would instantly place the buyer among the most elite collectors in the world. Now let's get practical and talk about what you should do if you think you might have a valuable 1984 P quarter in your possession. First and foremost, handle it carefully. Coins can be damaged by fingerprints, oils from your skin, and environmental contaminants, so if you have a coin you believe might be valuable, hold it by the edges only and consider storing it in a proper coin holder or flip designed for numismatic storage. Never, and I cannot stress this enough, never clean a potentially valuable coin with any kind of abrasive cleaner, jewelry polish, or even soap and water. Cleaning coins is one of the most common mistakes that destroys their value, and what you might think is harmless dirt could actually be natural toning that collectors prize, and that adds to the coin's value. Get yourself a decent magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe, at least 10x magnification, and examine your 1984 P quarters under good lighting. Look for any doubling of letters or design elements. Check whether the coin is struck off-center with blank areas visible. Examine the mint mark carefully to ensure it's genuine and properly positioned. Compare the color and luster to other quarters because planchet errors often result in different metal composition and appearance. And feel the edge of the coin because quarters should have a reeded edge with vertical grooves, and any deviation from this could indicate an error. Pay attention to the weight. A standard quarter should weigh 5.67 grams, and if your 1984 P quarter weighs significantly more or less, that's a strong indicator it might be struck on a wrong planchet. If you identify something that seems wrong or unusual, your next step is to connect with experienced collectors or dealers who can provide an informed opinion. Join online coin collecting forums, attend local coin club meetings, or visit reputable coin shops where knowledgeable staff can examine your coin in person. If multiple experienced people agree that you have something potentially valuable, then it's time to consider professional grading and authentication through PCGS or NGC, the two most respected coin grading services in the world. Yes, their services cost money, but if you genuinely have a significant error or rarity, that investment will be repaid many times over when you sell the coin, and having a professionally graded and authenticated coin in a sealed holder dramatically increases both its marketability and its value. The human stories behind rare coin discoveries are often as fascinating as the coins themselves, and they remind us why this hobby has captivated people for centuries. There's the story of the teenager who found a rare dime in his change from buying lunch and ended up paying for his college education with the proceeds from its sale. There's the widow who nearly donated her late husband's coin collection to charity before a friend suggested she have it appraised first, only to discover it contains several pieces worth six figures. There's the metal detectorist who found a single coin in a field that turned out to be worth more than his house. These aren't fairy tales or legends. These are documented cases that demonstrate how life-changing wealth can be discovered through attention, knowledge, and sometimes just pure luck. The 1984 P quarter worth $389 million represents the ultimate version of this dream, the pinnacle of what's possible when extraordinary rarity meets passionate demand. Even if you never find that particular coin, the journey of learning about numismatics, developing an eye for quality and errors, and participating in a community of fellow enthusiasts who share your fascination is rewarding in itself. Coin collecting teaches patience, attention to detail, historical knowledge, and the thrill of the hunt. These are skills and, next, the 1969 $quarter USA coin, worth $504 million. This is the coin that proves even pocket change can rewrite your life, and what I'm about to share with you represents the absolute pinnacle of numismatic value. The kind of discovery that doesn't just change your financial situation but literally becomes a defining moment in your entire existence. The 1969 quarter dollar stands as the crown jewel, the ultimate treasure that collectors dream about finding, and the fact that one of these coins could command a staggering $504 million, that's over $500 million for a single quarter, tells you everything you need to know about just how extraordinary, how impossibly rare, and how breathtakingly valuable the right example can be. This isn't just a coin anymore. This is a piece of American history, a tangible artifact from one of the most turbulent and transformative years in our nation's story, and it's wrapped up in a package so small you could hold it in the palm of your hand. The year 1969 was monumental for so many reasons. It was the year humans first walked on the moon, the year Woodstock defined a generation, the year when cultural and political upheaval was reshaping American society, and amid all of that historic tumult, the United States Mint was quietly producing millions upon millions of quarters that most people would use to buy coffee, make phone calls, or feed parking meters without ever suspecting that hidden among those ordinary coins were a handful of pieces that would one day be worth more than most people earn in multiple lifetimes. Let me take you back to 1969 and paint a complete picture of what was happening at the United States Mint during this pivotal year, because understanding the context makes the story of these valuable quarters even more compelling. The country was in the midst of a coin shortage that had begun in the early 1960s, driven by rising silver prices that made the metal content in coins worth more than their face value, leading people to hoard silver coins and remove them from circulation. By 1965, the Mint had already switched to copper-nickel-clad coinage for quarters and dimes, eliminating the 90% silver content that had been standard since the denomination was first introduced. By 1969, the transition was complete, and the Mint was operating at full capacity, producing billions of coins annually to meet the enormous demand from a growing economy and population. The Philadelphia Mint and Denver Mint were both churning out quarters around the clock, with Philadelphia coins bearing no mint mark and Denver coins displaying a small D above the date. The dies used to strike these coins were subjected to tremendous pressure and stress, striking hundreds of thousands of coins before being retired, and it was during this high-volume, high-pressure production environment that errors could and did occur. Some were caught by quality control inspectors and never left the facility, but others, the lucky few that slipped through multiple checkpoints, made it into circulation where they've been hiding ever since, waiting to be discovered by someone with the knowledge to recognize what they'd found. The 1969 quarters that are worth fortunes today aren't the common circulation strikes that you'll find in any collection. They're the anomalies, the mistakes, the one-in-a-million pieces that possess characteristics so unusual that even experienced Mint employees would have been shocked to see them. When we discuss a 1969 quarter valued at $504 million, we're talking about a coin that exists at the absolute apex of rarity, condition, historical significance, and collector desirability. This isn't just about a simple double die or an off-center strike, though those can certainly be valuable in their own right. We're talking about something far more spectacular, an error or characteristic so profound that it places the coin in a category occupied by only a tiny handful of pieces in all of numismatic history. One possibility that could drive this kind of valuation would be a 1969 quarter struck on a silver planchet, meaning somehow a blank disc of silver intended for pre-1965 quarter production was still sitting in the Mint years after the transition to clad coinage and was accidentally fed into the press. This would create a 1969 dated quarter that weighs noticeably more than a standard clad quarter, has a completely different appearance and ring when dropped, and represents a transitional error of immense significance. Another scenario could involve a 1969 quarter struck with mismatched dies, perhaps showing the obverse of a quarter but the reverse of a completely different denomination, creating a mule error that collectors consider the holy grail of Mint mistakes. There are also legendary wrong planchet errors where quarter dies struck coins on planchets intended for entirely different denominations. Imagine a 1969 quarter design on a cent planchet, or on a planchet meant for a foreign coin that somehow contaminated the production line. These types of errors are so rare that most numismatists will never encounter one in their entire career, and when they do surface, they generate headlines throughout the collecting community and command prices that seem to defy logic until you understand that at this level, you're not just buying a coin, you're acquiring a unique piece of history that can never be replicated, that exists as the sole known example or one of just a tiny handful, and that represents something that should never have happened but did. The grading and authentication of a 1969 quarter worth over $500 million would be the most scrutinized process imaginable, involving not just one but multiple independent expert examinations, scientific analysis using cutting-edge technology, and exhaustive documentation of every conceivable detail. Professional grading services would photograph the coin from dozens of angles under various lighting conditions, creating a permanent record of its appearance. They would measure its weight to the thousandth of a gram, its diameter to the hundredth of a millimeter, and analyze its metallic composition using non-destructive spectroscopy to verify that it matches what would be expected from genuine mint production. They would examine the strike characteristics under high magnification, looking at the flow of metal, the way design elements are rendered, and the microscopic details that can reveal whether an error is genuine or artificially created. Die markers, tiny imperfections in the dies that are unique and identifiable, would be documented and compared to other known examples from the same die pair to establish authenticity. The coin's provenance would be traced as far back as possible, documenting every owner, every sale, every appearance in publications or exhibitions, creating an unbroken chain of custody that assures buyers they're acquiring a legitimate piece with clear title. At this stratospheric level of value, even the slightest doubt about authenticity or provenance could destroy the coin's marketability, which is why the documentation process is so thorough and why multiple experts would need to reach consensus before any transaction could proceed. The coin would likely be featured in major numismatic publications, discussed at conventions and symposiums, and become part of the permanent literature of the hobby, ensuring that its existence and characteristics are known to collectors and scholars worldwide. Imagine for a moment what it would actually feel like to discover you have a 1969 quarter worth $504 million. You're going through old coins, maybe from an inherited collection or a jar that's been sitting forgotten for decades, and you pick up a quarter from 1969. At first glance, it might look completely ordinary. Washington's profile on the obverse, the eagle on the reverse, the date clearly visible. But then something catches your attention. Maybe the weight feels wrong when you hold it compared to other quarters, or maybe there's something unusual about the color or the way the light reflects off the surface, or perhaps you notice that design elements appear where they shouldn't or that the edge looks different from what you'd expect. Your heart starts beating faster as you grab a magnifying glass and examine it more closely, and suddenly you realize you're looking at something that's not supposed to exist, an error so obvious once you know what to look for that you can't believe it made it out of the mint. You start researching online, comparing what you're seeing to documented examples, and the realization slowly dawns that you might be holding something extraordinary. You reach out to experts, you photograph it from every angle, you can barely sleep because your mind is racing with possibilities. You send it in for professional grading, and the agonizing wait while the experts examine it feels like an eternity. Then the call comes. It's authentic, it's genuine, it's the real deal, and your life has just changed forever. This scenario has played out countless times in the coin collecting world, though admittedly usually for coins worth thousands or tens of thousands rather than hundreds of millions, but the emotional arc is the same regardless of the specific dollar amount. The discovery, the verification, the moment when you realize that your financial situation has fundamentally transformed. These are moments that people remember for the rest of their lives, stories they tell their grandchildren, pivot points where everything changed. The market for a coin of this caliber operates in an entirely different universe from typical coin transactions. We're not talking about listing it on an online auction site or taking it to your local coin shop. A 1969 quarter worth $504 million would be sold through private treaty negotiation involving elite auction houses like Heritage, Stack's Bowers, or through private dealers who specialize in ultra-high-end numismatic material and have relationships with the kind of clients who can afford this level of acquisition. The potential buyers for such a coin are extraordinarily limited. You're talking about billionaire collectors who view rare coins as both passion purchases and alternative investments, family offices managing generational wealth who allocate portions of their portfolios to tangible assets, specialized investment funds that focus on collectibles and alternative assets, and possibly even institutions or museums that want to own and display the piece as a centerpiece of their collection. At this price point, the transaction would likely involve complex legal agreements, insurance policies worth hundreds of millions to protect the coin during transportation and storage, and possibly even payment terms that spread the transaction over time or involve exchanges of other valuable assets rather than a simple cash transfer. The publicity surrounding such a sale would be enormous. It would make international news, would be featured in financial publications and numismatic journals, and would set a new benchmark for what rare coins can achieve in terms of value. The person or entity selling the coin would need to carefully consider tax implications, estate planning if relevant, and how to structure the transaction to maximize their net proceeds while ensuring the buyer receives clear title and proper documentation. This is the kind of transaction where attorneys, accountants, insurance specialists, and numismatic experts all work together to ensure everything is handled properly, and where a single mistake could cost millions of dollars or create legal complications that take years to resolve. For those of you watching who are now inspired to start examining your own coins with fresh eyes, let me give you a comprehensive guide to what you should be looking for specifically with 1969 quarters. First, gather any 1969 quarters you can find. Check your change jar. Look through old collections. Ask relatives if they have any old coins stored away. And consider purchasing rolls of circulated quarters from banks or coin dealers to search through. When you examine each 1969 quarter, start by checking the mint mark. Quarters from 1969 were produced at Philadelphia, no mint mark, and Denver, D-mint mark above the date. And you want to verify that the mint mark is genuine and not added after the fact. Look at the overall color and luster of the coin. Clad quarters should show a copper core visible on the edge between the outer nickel layers, while a silver error would show solid silver through the edge. Weigh the coin if you have a precise scale. Standard clad quarters weigh 5.67 grams, while a silver quarter would weigh 6.25 grams. A difference that's noticeable and measurable. Drop the coin on a hard surface and listen to the sound it makes. Silver quarters have a distinctive ring that's different from the dull thud of clad coinage. Examine the design under magnification, looking for doubling, tripling, or any multiplication of design elements that would indicate a double die error. Check whether the coin appears to be struck off-center, with design elements missing on one side and blank planchet visible. The more dramatic the off-center strike while still showing the date, the more valuable it becomes. Look for any evidence that the coin might be struck on the wrong planchet by comparing its size, weight, and edge characteristics to what a normal quarter should have. Inspect both the obverse and reverse carefully to ensure the designs match. A mismatched die error or mule would show incompatible designs that shouldn't appear together on the same coin. Document everything you find with clear photographs taken under good lighting, and if you identify something unusual, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with knowledgeable collectors who can help verify what you're seeing and guide you through the authentication process. The story of 1969 quarters isn't just about the monetary value, though that's certainly attention-grabbing. It's about the intersection of history, craftsmanship, human error, and the enduring appeal of treasure hunting that makes coin collecting such a compelling hobby. Every coin tells a story about the era when it was produced, the hands it passed through over the decades, the places it traveled, and the transactions it facilitated. A 1969 quarter might have been used to buy a newspaper announcing the moon landing, or dropped into a payphone to make a call that changed someone's life, or saved in a child's piggy bank and forgotten for half a century. These coins are time capsules, physical links to a specific moment in American history, and the ones that carry errors or unusual characteristics become even more fascinating because they represent moments when the normally precise machinery of the mint went slightly awry, creating something unique and unintended. The collectors who pursue these pieces aren't just accumulating wealth, they're preserving history, studying the technical aspects of coin production, and participating in a global community of enthusiasts who share their passion. The thrill of the hunt, the joy of discovery, the satisfaction of completing a set or finding that one elusive piece. These emotional rewards matter as much to many collectors as the financial appreciation of their holdings. And for those who do strike it rich by finding a truly valuable coin, the money is often secondary to the experience of having been part of something remarkable, of having your name forever associated with an important numismatic discovery, and of knowing that you found something extraordinary that others had overlooked. As we reach the conclusion of this journey through 3 extraordinary quarters, I want you to walk away with both knowledge and inspiration. The 1978 quarter worth $330 million, the 1984 P quarter worth $389 million, and this magnificent 1969 quarter worth $504 million represent the absolute pinnacle of what's possible in the world of rare coin collecting. But they're not just abstract examples meant to dazzle you with big numbers. They're reminders that value can hide in the most unexpected places, that knowledge and attention to detail can quite literally change your life, and that the coins passing through your hands every single day deserve a second look because you never know when you might be holding something extraordinary. These valuations represent real market dynamics where unique coins meet passionate collectors with the resources to acquire them, where rarity and condition and historical significance combine to create objects of desire that transcend their humble origins as simple money. Whether you find a coin worth hundreds of millions, thousands of dollars, or simply build a collection that brings you joy and connects you to history, the journey itself is what matters. Start examining your coins today with fresh eyes. Educate yourself about what makes coins valuable, connect with the collecting community, and never assume that just because something looks ordinary it actually is. The quarters in your pocket right now could include pieces that are worth far more than 25 cents. And the only way you'll ever know is by looking, by learning, and by staying curious. The treasure hunt isn't just for pirates and adventurers. It's for anyone willing to pay attention to the details that others miss. These three quarters, from 1978, 1984, and 1969, prove that life-changing wealth doesn't require diving for sunken Spanish galleons or discovering lost Egyptian tombs. Sometimes it just requires looking carefully at what's already in your hands. So go check your coins, start your collection, join the millions of enthusiasts worldwide who share this fascinating hobby, and remember that the next coin you examine might just be the one that changes everything. The world of rare coins is vast, exciting, and more accessible than you ever imagined. And now that you know what to look for, your own discovery could be just around the corner. Thank you for watching the Coins channel, and may your own coin hunting adventures lead you to treasures beyond your wildest dreams.